The sun scorched the Nevada desert with merciless intensity as Leila Hamilton's fingers clawed at the sand, her cracked lips unable to form the scream trapped in her parched throat. Blood trickled down her temple, mixing with the dust and sweat that coated her once fine traveling dress. The distant sounds of wagon wheels and horses' hooves grew fainter with each passing second, abandoning her to the vast emptiness of the desert in the summer of 1873. "Water," she rasped, though no one remained to hear her plea. The men who had brought her here, trusted guides hired in Virginia City, had left her to die after taking her money, jewelry, and the deed to her late father's mining claim. They had struck her when she resisted, then left her bleeding and disoriented in the scorching wasteland. Miles away, Quentin Xavier adjusted his weathered Stetson against the blinding sun. At 30 years old, he'd spent half his life in the saddle, working cattle and occasionally guiding travelers across the treacherous terrain between Nevada and California. His tall frame moved easily with the rhythm of his horse, a chestnut gelding named Copper who had been his faithful companion for 7 years. "What do you think, boy?" he murmured to the horse. "Should we take the south pass toward Keeler or head north to the trading post?" Copper snorted and shook his mane, seemingly indifferent to the choice. Quentin patted the animal's neck and decided on the southern route. Something intuition, or perhaps just the habit of a man accustomed to listening to the desert, pulled him in that direction. The decision would alter the course of 2 lives forever. It was near midday when Quentin spotted something unusual on the horizon, a splash of faded blue against the relentless brown and gold of the desert floor. He narrowed his eyes, squinting against the glare. "Hold up, Copper," he said, reaching for his field glass. Through the lens, the blue shape transformed into the unmistakable form of a woman's dress, and beside it, a motionless figure. "Dear God," he muttered, spurring Copper forward. As he approached, his stomach knotted at the sight. A young woman lay half buried in sand, her face blistered from sun exposure, her lips cracked and bleeding. Her chestnut hair, once elaborately styled, hung in tangled disarray around her swollen face. From the quality of her torn dress and boots, Quentin guessed she was no ordinary traveler. He dismounted quickly and knelt beside her. "Madam, can you hear me?" When she didn't respond, he gently turned her face, noting the ugly bruise at her temple and the dried blood trailing down her neck. Robbery, he guessed, or worse. The bastards had left her to die slow in the desert heat, a fate Quentin wouldn't wish on his worst enemy. He pressed 2 fingers to her neck and felt a faint, erratic pulse. She was alive, but barely. "You're going to be all right, madam," he said, though he wasn't certain she could hear him. "I'm going to get you to safety." Quentin retrieved his canteen and carefully trickled a few drops between her parched lips. She stirred slightly but didn't open her eyes. He dampened his bandana and wiped her face, cleaning away dust and dried blood as gently as possible. "Copper and I are going to take care of you now," he continued, talking to fill the eerie silence of the desert. "There's a town called Keeler about 30 miles from here. Good doctor there. But first, we need to get you out of this sun." He lifted her as carefully as he could, alarmed at how light she felt in his arms. Dehydration had already taken a severe toll. Quentin managed to get her onto Copper's back before mounting behind her, cradling her limp form against his chest. "Easy, boy," he murmured to the horse. "We've got precious cargo now." The woman's head lolled against his shoulder as they began their slow journey. Quentin periodically stopped to give her small sips of water, but she remained unconscious, her breathing shallow and labored. By late afternoon, he knew they wouldn't make it to Keeler before nightfall. The woman's condition was deteriorating, her skin burning with fever despite the cooling air. Quentin spotted a familiar outcropping of rocks that would provide shelter for the night and guided Copper toward it. Just a little further, he encouraged both horse and unconscious passenger. The small natural shelter offered protection from the wind and any nocturnal predators. Quentin dismounted and carefully lifted the woman, laying her on his bedroll inside the shallow cave. He worked quickly to make a small fire, then turned his attention to his unexpected charge. In the gentle light of the flames, he could better assess her injuries. The head wound was concerning, but it had stopped bleeding. More pressing was her severe dehydration and exposure. He moistened her lips again and used the last of his water to dampen cloths for her forehead and wrists, hoping to bring down her fever. As he worked, she stirred, her eyelids fluttering open momentarily. Eyes the color of summer sage blinked uncomprehendingly at him before closing again. "You're safe now," Quentin assured her, though he wasn't certain she'd heard him. "I'm Quentin Xavier. I'm taking you to Keeler come morning." He settled beside her, prepared for a long night of vigilance. Every hour he checked her breathing and pulse, re-wetting the cloths with precious water from his reserve canteen. Near dawn, her fever broke, and she seemed to rest more peacefully. When the first light of morning filtered into their shelter, Quentin was already preparing for their journey. He'd need to find water soon for both them and Copper, who had gone without so the woman could have what remained. He was packing his meager supplies when he heard her voice, barely a whisper. "Where am I?" Quentin turned to find those sage-green eyes open and watching him with a mixture of fear and confusion. "You're safe, madam," he said, approaching slowly so as not to frighten her. "I found you in the desert yesterday. You were in a bad way. I'm taking you to Keeler where there's a doctor who can tend to you properly." She tried to sit up but fell back with a groan, her hand going to her head. "They took everything," she whispered. "Who did? The men who left you out there," she nodded weakly. "Guides, they said. They'd take me to my father's claim near Keeler." Each word seemed to cost her tremendous effort. "Save your strength," Quentin advised, offering her water. "Small sips. That's it. What's your name, madam?" "Leila," she managed after drinking. "Leila Hamilton." "Miss Hamilton, I'm Quentin Xavier. Most folks call me Quent. I'm going to get you to Keeler, but it's about 20 miles more. Think you can hold on that long?" She closed her eyes briefly, then opened them with new determination. "I've made it this far, Mr. Xavier." Despite her condition, there was a spark in her that impressed him. This woman had survived what would have killed many men. "That you have, Miss Hamilton. That you have." Getting her back on Copper proved challenging. Leila was stronger than the previous day but still dangerously weak. Quentin fashioned a more secure seat for her using his bedroll and spare shirt, then mounted behind her, one arm holding her steady against him. "I apologize for the impropriety," he said as they set off, "but there's no help for it out here." "You saved my life, Mr. Xavier," she replied softly. "I believe conventional proprieties may be suspended under such circumstances." Quentin couldn't help but smile at her formal diction, even in such dire straits. "I believe you're right about that, Miss Hamilton." Throughout the morning, he kept up a steady stream of conversation, partly to keep her conscious and partly to distract her from the pain and discomfort. He told her about the land they were traveling through, pointed out landmarks, and shared bits of local lore. In return, she revealed fragments of her story between periods of exhausted silence. She had come from Boston after receiving news of her father's death. Jonathan Hamilton had gone west 5 years earlier to seek his fortune and had apparently found it in a silver claim near Keeler. His letters had stopped 6 months ago, and when Leila finally received word of his passing, she'd also learned he'd left his claim to her. "I sold everything in Boston," she explained, her voice growing stronger as the day progressed. Father's letters said the claim was valuable. I thought I could make a new start. And these guides, they knew about the claim? Quentin asked, already piecing together what had happened. Leila nodded, wincing at the movement. I showed them Father's letters. They seemed so knowledgeable, so helpful. Bitterness tinged her voice. I was a fool. No, Quentin said firmly. You're not the first to be taken in by such men, and sadly, you won't be the last. The territory attracts its share of vultures. They stopped at midday when Quentin spotted a small spring. While Copper drank gratefully, Quentin refilled their canteens and helped Leila wash the worst of the desert from her face and hands. The water feels heavenly, she sighed, her eyes closing briefly in relief. Looking at her in the clear light, Quentin realized she was younger than he'd first thought, perhaps 23 or 24. Despite the bruises and sunburn, he could see she was beautiful, with fine features and expressive eyes. A fierce protectiveness surged through him, surprising in its intensity. We should reach Keeler by nightfall, he told her as he helped her back onto Copper. Dr. Whitman is a good man. He'll have you right in no time. And then what? She asked softly, the question hanging between them. Quentin had no ready answer. By all rights, Leila Hamilton should continue her journey once she recovered back to Boston or wherever else she might have connections. But something in her expression suggested there was nowhere to go back to. First things first, he said gently. Let's get you well. The rest will sort itself out. They continued their journey, the miles passing slowly under Copper's steady gait. By late afternoon, Leila's strength was flagging again. She leaned heavily against Quentin, her head resting on his shoulder. Tell me about Keeler, she requested, her voice barely audible above the wind. It's a small place, but growing. The silver mines brought people at first, but now there's ranching and some farming where the land permits. Good folks, mostly. I've got a small spread outside town, nothing fancy, but it suits me and the few cattle I run. You live alone? She asked. Just me and Copper and about 30 head of the most stubborn longhorns God ever created, he confirmed with a chuckle. My nearest neighbor is old Jim Rafferty, 3 miles east. He fought in the Mexican War and has a story for every scar, and he's got plenty. Leila smiled weakly. He sounds like a character. That he is. Keeler's full of them, you'll see. As the sun began its descent toward the western horizon, the distant outlines of Keeler came into view. Quentin felt Leila stir against him. Is that it? She asked, hope threading through her exhaustion. That's it. We made it, Miss Hamilton. Leila, she corrected him softly. After carrying me across the desert, I believe you've earned the right to use my Christian name. Leila, he repeated, liking the way it felt. And I'm Quent. They entered Keeler as the last light of day painted the dusty main street in hues of gold and amber. Despite the hour, several townsfolk paused in their evening activities to watch the unusual sight of Quentin Xavier riding in with an injured woman in his arms. Quent, what in tarnation? Called Sam Miller from the doorway of his general store. Need the doctor, Sam, Quentin called back. This lady was left for dead out in the desert. She needs help quick. Sam hurried over, concern etching his weathered face. Doc's at the Murray place, their boy broke his arm, but Emma's at the clinic. She can help till he gets back. Thanks, Sam. Can you send someone for the doc? Tell him it's urgent. Consider it done, Sam replied, already turning to dispatch a young boy standing nearby. Quentin guided Copper down the street to the small whitewashed building that served as Keeler's clinic. Emma Whitman, the doctor's capable wife, was sweeping the porch when they arrived. Good heavens, she exclaimed, rushing forward as Quentin carefully dismounted with Leila. Bring her inside, quickly. The clinic was modest but clean, with a small examination room and 2 recovery rooms in the back. Emma directed Quentin to place Leila on the examination table, then immediately began assessing her condition. "She's severely dehydrated," Emma noted, checking Leila's pulse, "and this head wound needs cleaning. When did this happen?" "Found her yesterday, about 30 miles out," Quentin explained. "Some guides robbed her and left her to die. She's been drifting in and out of consciousness. I gave her what water I had, but it wasn't enough." Emma nodded briskly. "You did well to get her here alive, Quent. Now, I need to get her out of these filthy clothes and properly tended. You can wait outside." Quentin hesitated, reluctant to leave Leila's side after their arduous journey together. Leila reached out weakly and caught his hand. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." He squeezed her hand gently. "I'll be right outside if you need anything." As he stepped onto the porch, the weight of the past 30 hours descended on him all at once. Quentin sank onto a bench, suddenly aware of his own thirst and exhaustion. He removed his hat and ran a hand through his dust-caked hair, his thoughts never straying far from the woman inside. Sam Miller appeared with a canteen and some jerky. "Figured you might need this," he said, handing them over. "That's some journey you made." Quentin accepted gratefully. "Thanks, Sam. Any word on the doc?" Billy Matthews rode out to fetch him. "Should be back soon." Sam sat beside him. "So who is she? Not from around here, that's plain enough." "Name's Leila Hamilton. Says her father had a claim near here. Jonathan Hamilton, you know of him." Sam's expression shifted. "Hamilton? Yeah, I knew him. Decent fellow. Found a rich vein up in the North Ridge last year. Was killed in a cave in about 6 months back. She came all the way from Boston to claim her inheritance," Quentin explained. "Got robbed by her guides and left to die." Sam spat disgustedly. "Bastards. Sheriff Foster should hear about this. He might have some idea who's behind it." "I'll talk to him tomorrow," Quentin promised. "Right now, I just want to make sure she pulls through, Doctor." Whitman arrived 30 minutes later, hurrying into the clinic with his medical bag. Quentin paced the porch anxiously until the doctor emerged an hour later, wiping his hands on a towel. "She's resting now," Dr. Whitman reported. "It was touch and go, but I believe she'll recover. The head wound isn't as severe as it looked. Scalp wounds always bleed dramatically. Her worst problems are dehydration and exposure." Relief washed over Quentin. "Can I see her?" Dr. Whitman studied him curiously. "She's sleeping, Quent. Best not to disturb her. Come back tomorrow." "Emma and I will keep watch tonight." Quentin reluctantly agreed. He'd done his part bringing Leila to safety. Now it was time to let the doctor do his. Besides, he needed to see to Copper and get some rest himself. "I'll be back first thing in the morning," he promised. "If she wakes and asks for me, tell her I'll return." The doctor nodded, an understanding smile playing at his lips. "I'll tell her. Now go get some sleep. You look dead on your feet." Quentin led Copper to the livery stable, ensuring his faithful companion received a good rub-down, fresh water, and extra oats for his heroic efforts. Then he made his way to the small hotel on the corner of Main Street. Mrs. Pearson, the hotel proprietor, clucked her tongue at his disheveled state, but quickly arranged a room and a hot bath. "Word travels fast in Keeler," she explained. "Everyone's talking about how you carried that poor young woman all the way from the desert. It's the most excitement we've had since the miller's cow got stuck in the church belfry last Easter." Despite his exhaustion, Quentin smiled at the memory. "That was quite a day." "Indeed it was. Now get yourself cleaned up. I'll have some stew sent up. You must be starved." The hot bath was heavenly, washing away days of desert dust and easing his sore muscles. As he soaked, Quentin found his thoughts constantly returning to Leila. Her courage in the face of such adversity had impressed him deeply. And there was something about those sage green eyes that had stirred feelings long dormant within him. After a hearty meal and a good night's sleep, Quentin woke at dawn, eager to check on Leila. He dressed quickly and headed to the clinic, where he found Emma Whitman already up and about. "How is she this morning?" he asked immediately. Emma smiled knowingly. "Much improved. The fever broke during the night. She's awake and asking for you." Quentin's heart quickened at this news. "May I see her, of course? She's in the first room. Don't tire her out, though. She needs rest." He nodded and made his way to Leila's room, pausing briefly to compose himself before knocking softly. "Come in," came her voice, stronger than he'd yet heard it. Leila was propped up on pillows, her chestnut hair brushed and braided neatly. The worst of the sunburn had faded, revealing the natural cream of her complexion. Her eyes brightened when she saw him. "Mr. Xavier Quent," she corrected herself. "I was hoping you'd come." "How are you feeling?" he asked, taking the chair beside her bed. "Like I've been dragged behind a stagecoach for miles," she admitted with a small smile. "But alive, thanks to you." Quentin shook his head. "You're a fighter, Leila. Most wouldn't have survived what you did." A shadow passed across her face. "Dr. Whitman told me about my father. I had hoped." "Well, I suppose I knew when the letters stopped coming." "I'm sorry for your loss," Quentin said sincerely. "Thank you." She was quiet for a moment. "He also told me something else, that my father's claim was indeed valuable, but that someone else has been working it these past 6 months. Quentin frowned. "Without legal right?" "Apparently so. A man named Victor Blackstone presented documents showing he'd purchased the claim from my father. Dr. Whitman thinks they may be forgeries." "That would explain why those guides left you for dead," Quentin realized. "If Blackstone hired them to intercept you." "It would mean he knew I was coming," Leila finished. "But how? I told no one except the attorney who confirmed Father's death." "Someone in that office must have sent word. Blackstone probably has connections in Virginia City." Leila's hands twisted in the bedsheets. "So I have nothing. No family, no claim, no money." Her voice remained steady, but Quentin could see the fear behind her composure. "You have friends here now," he assured her, impulsively taking her hand. "And we'll get to the bottom of this. If your father's claim was stolen from you, we'll prove it." She looked at their joined hands, then up at his face. "Why would you help me? You've already done more than anyone could expect." Quentin considered the question. Why indeed? He'd known this woman barely 2 days, yet he felt inexplicably drawn to her, committed to her welfare in a way that went beyond simple decency. "Because it's right," he said finally. "And because I'd like to think someone would do the same for me if I were in your position." She studied him for a long moment. "You're an unusual man, Quentin Xavier." Before he could respond, Dr. Whitman entered, carrying a tray with a light breakfast. "Good morning to you both," he said cheerfully. "I see our patient is looking much better today." "Thanks to your care," Leila acknowledged gratefully. "And Quent's timely rescue," the doctor added, setting down the tray. "Now, eat up. You need your strength. Quent, Sheriff Foster is looking for you. He's at the cafe having breakfast." "I'll go see him now," Quentin said, rising reluctantly. To Leila, he added, "I'll be back later if that's all right." "I'd like that," she replied softly. Quentin found Sheriff Daniel Foster at the town's only cafe, nursing a cup of coffee over a half-eaten plate of eggs and bacon. The sheriff, a former Union Army captain with a reputation for fairness and dogged persistence, looked up as Quentin approached. "There he is, Keeler's newest hero," Foster greeted him with a wry smile. "Sit down, Quent. Hear you've had quite an adventure." Quentin slid into the chair opposite him. "Hardly heroic, Dan. Just happened to be in the right place. From what I hear, you carried that woman 30 miles across open desert. That's something." The sheriff pushed his coffee cup aside. "Tell me what happened." Quentin recounted finding Leila and their journey to Keeler, then shared what she'd told him about the guides and her father's claim. Foster listened intently, his expression darkening. "Victor Blackstone," he muttered when Quentin finished. "Should have known he'd be mixed up in this." "You know him? Know of him?" "He showed up about 5 months ago with papers saying he'd bought Hamilton's claim. Something seemed off, but the documents looked legitimate. He's been working the mine ever since, brought in some rough types as laborers." The sheriff leaned forward. "Between us, I've had my eye on him. There have been rumors of claim jumping up north, and Blackstone's name came up in connection." "So you think he forged the sale documents?" "It's possible. Hamilton was a careful man, kept to himself. Strange he'd sell a profitable claim without telling his daughter." "We need to see those papers," Quentin said decisively. "Already ahead of you," Foster replied. "I've sent a wire to the land office in Carson City requesting copies of the deed transfer. Should hear back in a few days. In the meantime, I'd like to speak with Miss Hamilton, get her description of the guides who robbed her." "She's still recovering," Quentin said protectively. "I'll be gentle," Foster assured him. "But the sooner we get descriptions, the better chance we have of catching them." Quentin nodded reluctantly. "I'll take you to see her after breakfast." While they ate, Foster filled Quentin in on the town gossip he'd missed during his absence. The conversation inevitably circled back to Leila and her situation. "Where will she stay once Doc releases her?" Foster asked. "Can't keep her at the clinic forever." The question had been nagging at Quentin as well. "Mrs. Pearson might have a room at the hotel," he suggested. "On what money? You said she was robbed of everything." Quentin hadn't considered that. "I could hold your horses," Foster interrupted with a knowing look. "Before you go offering to support a woman you barely know, let me suggest something. Martha Jenkins at the Mercantile was just saying yesterday she needs help with the books and serving customers. Her arthritis is getting worse. Might be a suitable position for an educated Eastern lady needing to get back on her feet." The idea had merit. It would give Leila independence while they sorted out the claim situation. "I'll mention it to her," Quentin agreed. "But first, let's focus on proving Blackstone's fraud." When they visited the clinic later that morning, they found Leila sitting up in a chair by the window, color returning to her cheeks. She greeted them with a tentative smile that warmed considerably when her eyes met Quentin's. Sheriff Foster introduced himself and expressed his concern over what had happened to her. With gentle questioning, he drew out descriptions of the 2 men who had guided and subsequently robbed her. The taller one had a distinctive scar across his jaw, Leila recalled. "And he called the other man Reeves several times, though they introduced themselves to me as Johnson and Smith." Foster's eyes narrowed at this detail. "Reeves, you say? Would that be Wesley Reeves, do you think? Medium height, sandy hair, missing the top of his left ear." Leila nodded eagerly. "Yes, that's him exactly. Do you know him?" "Know of him," Foster replied grimly. "He's worked for Blackstone since he arrived in the territory. This confirms my suspicions. Blackstone must have learned you were coming and sent his men to intercept you. But why leave me to die?" Leila asked, her voice steady despite the horror of the question. "If they just wanted the deed, they could have taken it and left me in Virginia City." Foster and Quentin exchanged glances. "Because you're Jonathan Hamilton's only heir," Quentin explained gently. "Even without the deed in hand, you could contest Blackstone's claim to the mine. As long as you're alive, his ownership isn't secure." The color drained from Leila's face as the full implication sank in. "They meant to murder me without getting blood directly on their hands." "I'm afraid so," Foster confirmed, "which means you're still in danger. Blackstone doesn't know you survived, but it won't take long for word to spread." Quentin's protective instincts flared. "She can't stay at the hotel or anywhere public." "Agreed," Foster said. She needs somewhere safe until we can expose Blackstone and arrest Reeves and his partner. She can stay at my place, Quentin offered without hesitation. It's isolated enough that no one would think to look there, and I can protect her if they do. Leila looked startled by the suggestion. Mr. Xavier, I couldn't impose, it's not an imposition, he insisted. I have a spare room. It's simple but comfortable. You'd be safe there. It's a good plan, Foster approved. Quent's ranch is 3 miles out of town, secluded but not so far that help couldn't reach you quickly if needed. He turned to Leila. I understand your concerns about propriety, Miss Hamilton, but your safety must come first. Leila considered for a moment, then nodded. You're right, of course. If Mr. Xavier is certain, it wouldn't be an inconvenience. It wouldn't, Quentin assured her. To Foster, he added, when do you think she should move? Soon as Doc Whitman says she's fit to travel, Foster replied. Meanwhile, I'll see about tracking down Reeves and his partner. They might lead us to evidence against Blackstone. Dr. Whitman, when consulted, advised that Leila could leave the clinic the following day if she continued to improve. But she'll need rest and proper care for at least another week, he cautioned. No exertion, plenty of fluids and nutritious food. She'll have all that and more, Quentin promised. That evening, as Leila rested at the clinic, Quentin made preparations at his ranch. He cleaned the spare bedroom thoroughly, put fresh linens on the bed, and even gathered wildflowers from the creek to place on the small bedside table. It occurred to him, as he surveyed his humble home through new eyes, how long it had been since he'd had a guest, and never a female one. The next morning, he drove his wagon into town, bringing along extra blankets and pillows to make the journey as comfortable as possible for Leila. He found her dressed and waiting, wearing a simple calico dress that Mrs. Whitman had altered to fit her slender frame. Emma insisted I take it, Leila explained, smoothing the fabric self-consciously. She says the Ladies' Aid Society has collected some other essentials for me as well. Keeler takes care of its own, Quentin said with a smile, then added, and you're one of us now, at least until this business with your father's claim is settled. The journey to Quentin's ranch passed pleasantly. Though still weak, Leila was alert and interested in everything around her. She asked questions about the landscape, the wildlife, and Quentin's life in Keeler. How long have you lived here? She inquired as they passed a stand of cottonwoods marking a hidden spring. Going on 8 years, Quentin replied. Came west after the war between the states. Worked cattle drives for a while, then saved enough to buy my own place. It must have been difficult starting from nothing, he shrugged. Had good people help me along the way. Man named Tobias Reed took me under his wing, taught me ranching, left me some money when he passed. That's how I got my start. And your family, are they still back east? A shadow crossed Quentin's face. Lost my parents to fever when I was 16. No siblings. The war came soon after and I enlisted. By the time it ended, there wasn't much to go back to in Tennessee. Leila nodded with understanding. We have that in common then, being alone in the world. Their eyes met briefly, a moment of connection that transcended their short acquaintance. Here we are, Quentin said as they crested a small rise, revealing his ranch spread out before them. It was modest but well-maintained. A sturdy log cabin with a covered porch, a barn, corral, and several outbuildings. A creek ran along one edge of the property, feeding a small garden patch. In the distance, cattle grazed on the rolling grassland. It's lovely, Leila said sincerely. So peaceful compared to Boston. Quentin helped her down from the wagon, steadying her when she swayed slightly on her feet. Let's get you inside and settled. You're looking tired. The cabin's interior was simple but comfortable, with a main room that served as both kitchen and living area, and 2 bedrooms off the back. A stone fireplace dominated one wall, and handcrafted furniture filled the space without crowding it. "It's not fancy," Quentin said, suddenly self-conscious of the rustic surroundings. Leila touched a hand-carved chair back appreciatively. "Did you make this?" He nodded. "Winter evenings get long. Woodworking passes the time." "It's beautiful work," she said, admiring the intricate pattern carved into the wood. "You have an artist's hands." Quentin felt an unexpected warmth at her praise. "Your room is this way," he said, leading her to the smaller of the two bedrooms. "I put in fresh linens and tried to make it comfortable." Leila stepped into the room, taking in the clean bed with its colorful quilt, the small bedside table with wildflowers, and the window that looked out onto the rolling hills beyond. For a moment, she seemed overcome with emotion. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything. I don't know how I'll ever repay such kindness." "No need for repayment," Quentin assured her. "Rest now. I'll bring you some tea and then see to my chores." Over the next few days, they settled into a tentative routine. Quentin tended his cattle and property during the day while Leila regained her strength. Each evening, they shared a simple meal and conversation by the fire. Quentin found himself looking forward to these quiet hours more than he cared to admit. Leila proved to be well-read and intelligent, with thoughtful opinions on everything from literature to politics. She told him about her life in Boston, her work as a teacher in a girls' school, and her complicated relationship with her father, who had left for the West when she was 18, promising to send for her once he made his fortune. "He wrote faithfully for the first 3 years," she explained one evening as they sat by the fire. "His letters were full of adventures and near misses. Then they became less frequent, more focused on the claim and how rich it would make us." "Did he ever ask you to join him?" Quentin inquired gently. Leila shook her head. "Always soon and when the time is right. I think he enjoyed the freedom of the West too much to return to Boston society and its constraints. Or perhaps he simply forgot what it was like to have a daughter." The hurt in her voice was evident despite her attempt to sound matter-of-fact. Quentin resisted the urge to take her hand, to offer comfort beyond words. "And yet you came when you learned of his death," he observed. "He was my only family," she said simply. "And I'd grown tired of teaching other people's daughters while my own life passed me by. When the letter came about his death and the inheritance, it seemed like a sign, a chance for a new beginning." "It still can be," Quentin assured her. "Sheriff Foster sent word this morning that the land office has responded. He wants us to come to town tomorrow to discuss it." Hope flared in Leila's eyes. "Did he say what they found?" "No details, just that it's important we come in." The next day they rode into Keeler together, Leila seated securely in front of Quentin on copper. Her strength had improved considerably, but the close contact still sent Quentin's pulse racing in a way that had nothing to do with exertion. Sheriff Foster was waiting at his office with a thin packet of papers and a grim expression. "Miss Hamilton, Quent, thanks for coming in. I've got news and you'll want to be sitting down for it." Once they were settled, Foster spread the documents on his desk. "The land office confirms that Jonathan Hamilton filed a claim for the North Ridge mine on April 18, 1872. The claim was recorded and confirmed legal in all respects." "That matches what my father wrote to me," Leila said eagerly. "Here's where it gets interesting," Foster continued. "On January 10, 1873, about a month after your father's death, a deed transfer was filed, signing over all rights to the claim to Victor Blackstone. The transfer appears to have your father's signature, witnessed by 2 men, Wesley Reeves and Thomas Garrett." "The same Reeves who left me to die in the desert," Leila noted with quiet anger. "Exactly. Now, I'm no handwriting expert, but I had Judge Wilson look at these signatures. Foster tapped the paper. He compared them with some legal documents your father filed when he first came to town. In his opinion, the signature on this transfer is a forgery, a good one, but still a forgery. Quentin leaned forward. So Blackstone falsified the transfer after Hamilton died. That's my thinking. When Blackstone learned Hamilton had a daughter back east who was heir to the claim, he had to make sure she never made it to Keeler to contest the forgery. So he sent his men to intercept me, Leila finished. But how did he know I was coming? Foster handed her another paper. This is a copy of a telegram sent from Boston to Virginia City 3 months ago. It's addressed to the law office that notified you of your father's death. It's your travel itinerary. Leila scanned the telegram, her face paling. Mr. Abernathy's office. I trusted him. Abernathy may not be directly involved, Foster cautioned. Could be a clerk in his office, but someone definitely tipped off Blackstone about your arrival. What happens now? Quentin asked. We have suspicions, but no solid proof Blackstone was behind the forgery or the attempt on Leila's life. I'm working on that, Foster assured them. I've sent deputies to track down Reeves and Garrett. If we can get one of them to talk, we might have our proof. In the meantime, Quentin said, Leila should continue staying at my place. It's safest until Blackstone is dealt with. Foster nodded agreement. Blackstone still doesn't know you survived, Miss Hamilton. Let's keep it that way for now. The fewer people who know you're at Quent's ranch, the better. As they prepared to leave, Foster added, one more thing, Blackstone comes into town every Saturday night for cards at the saloon. Might be worth knowing if you're planning to be in town. We'll be careful, Quentin promised, his hand unconsciously moving to Leila's elbow as he guided her outside. On their way back to the ranch, they stopped at Jenkins' Mercantile to pick up supplies. Martha Jenkins, a kindly widow in her 60s, took to Leila immediately. Sheriff Foster mentioned you might be looking for work once you're recovered, Martha said as she wrapped parcels of sugar and coffee. I could certainly use help with the books and serving customers. My fingers aren't what they used to be. Leila brightened at the offer. I'd be delighted, Mrs. Jenkins. I was a teacher in Boston, so I'm quite comfortable with figures and ledgers. Perfect. Once this business with your father's claim is settled and you're fully recovered, we can discuss arrangements. Martha leaned closer, lowering her voice confidentially. Don't you worry about Victor Blackstone. That man's had a reckoning coming for some time. The whole town's behind you. On their ride home, Leila seemed more animated than Quentin had yet seen her. It feels good to have a purpose again, she explained when he commented on her improved spirits, and to know there might be justice for what happened to my father and to me. Martha's right, Quentin said. The town will stand with you. Keeler looks after its own. Leila was quiet for a moment. Is that what I am now? One of Keeler's own, if you want to be, he replied carefully. Seems to me you've earned your place here, surviving what you did. She leaned back against him slightly, her voice soft. I think I'd like that, to belong somewhere again. The simple statement stirred something in Quentin's chest, a longing he'd suppressed for years. He'd built a good life in Keeler, but it had been a solitary one. Having Leila in his home these past days had awakened him to how empty it had been before. At the ranch, they fell back into their routine, but something had shifted between them. Their evening conversations grew longer, more personal. Quentin found himself sharing stories he'd never told another soul about the war, about his dreams for the ranch, about the loneliness he'd never quite admitted to himself. Leila, in turn, revealed more of her life in Boston, the expectations that had constrained her, the quiet rebellion in her heart, the complicated love for a father who had abandoned her in pursuit of his own dreams. 5 days after their visit to town, Quentin was repairing fence in the north pasture when he spotted a rider approaching at speed. His hand went instinctively to the rifle slung across his saddle as he squinted against the sun to identify the visitor. It was Jim Rafferty, his nearest neighbor, an old ex-soldier whose weathered face now showed unusual concern. "Quent," Jim called as he reined in his horse. "Been looking for you. Sheriff Foster sent me. Says you and the lady need to get into town right away. He's found Reeves." Quentin's pulse quickened. "Alive?" "Barely," Jim confirmed grimly. "Took a bullet in the gut. Doc doesn't think he'll last the night. If you want a deathbed confession, best hurry." "Thanks, Jim. We'll head in right away." Quentin rode hard back to the cabin where he found Leila hanging laundry on the line. She knew something was wrong the moment she saw his face. "What's happened?" she asked, dropping the wet shirt back into the basket. "Sheriff's found Reeves. He's dying. If we want his testimony about Blackstone, we need to go now." Leila paled but nodded resolutely. "I'll get my shawl." They made the journey to town in record time, Copper seeming to sense the urgency of their mission. At the clinic, they found Sheriff Foster standing guard outside a room at the back. "You made good time," he greeted them. "Reeves is conscious but fading. Doc's given him something for the pain and he's talking." "What happened to him?" Quentin asked. "Blackstone happened," Foster replied grimly. "Seems our friend Victor got wind that the law was asking questions about the Hamilton claim. Reeves and Garrett had a falling out with Blackstone over payment for their part in the scheme. When deputies started looking for them, Blackstone decided to tie up loose ends." "He shot his own men?" Leila asked, horrified. "Shot Reeves. Garrett's still missing, probably on the run or already dead too." Foster turned to Leila. "Reeves is asking to see Hamilton's daughter. Says he has something to say to you before he dies. Are you up to it?" Leila straightened her shoulders. "Yes, I need to hear what he has to say." Foster nodded approvingly. "Quent and I will be right there with you, don't worry." The small recovery room smelled of antiseptic and death. Wesley Reeves lay pale and sweating on the narrow bed, his breathing labored. His eyes glassy with pain and morphine focused on Leila as she entered. "You survived," he rasped, something like admiration in his fading voice. "No thanks to you," she replied steadily. A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Thought the desert would finish you for sure. Tough lady." "Mr. Reeves," Sheriff Foster interjected, "you said you had something to tell Miss Hamilton." Reeves nodded weakly. "Blackstone, he forged the papers. Your pa never sold that claim to anyone. We watched him for weeks, waiting for a good sample of his signature. Garrett was good with a pen, copied it perfect." "And my father's death?" Leila asked, her voice tight with emotion. "Was that part of your plan too?" "No," Reeves said, shaking his head slightly. "That was an accident. Real cave-in. But Blackstone saw an opportunity. With Hamilton dead, no one to contest the forgery except you." His breathing became more labored. "Blackstone paid us to make sure you never got here, told us to make it look like an accident." "Why are you telling us this now?" Quentin demanded. Reeves' eyes shifted to him. "Man shoots you in the back, changes your perspective." He coughed, a wet, ominous sound. "Letter in my saddlebag from Blackstone has instructions about the girl proof." Sheriff Foster leaned closer. "Where's your horse, Reeves?" "Livery. Told Smith I was passing through." Another coughing fit seized him and blood appeared on his lips. "I'm done. Just wanted someone to know. Blackstone's a dead man walking. He just doesn't know it yet." Dr. Whitman stepped forward, checking Reeves' pulse. "He needs rest now. You should go." Outside the room, Foster turned to them excitedly. "If that letter exists, we've got Blackstone cold. I'll head to the livery right now." "We'll come with you," Quentin insisted, his hand at the small of Leila's back. At the livery stable, the owner confirmed that Reeves had indeed left a horse and saddlebags that morning. Paid for 3 days' keep, he added. Said he'd be moving on after some business in town. Foster quickly located the bags and searched through them, triumphantly producing a folded letter. "This is it," he declared after scanning the contents. Blackstone's instructions to Reeves about intercepting Hamilton's daughter and ensuring she never reaches Keeler. It's dated 2 months ago, right after the land office would have notified him of your inquiry about the claim. "Is it enough to arrest him?" Leila asked hopefully. "More than enough," Foster assured her. "I'll get a warrant from Judge Wilson immediately." He looked at Quentin. "Blackstone will be at the saloon tonight for his regular poker game. I'll take him then with deputies for backup. Best if you two stay clear until it's done." Quentin nodded agreement, but something in his gut told him it wouldn't be that simple. Blackstone had killed once to protect his secret. He wouldn't surrender easily. "We'll get a meal at the hotel and head back to the ranch," he told Foster. "Send word when it's over." At the hotel restaurant, Leila picked at her food, too agitated to eat much. "I keep thinking about my father," she admitted. "Dying alone in that mine, never knowing his claim would be stolen or that I would come looking for him." Quentin reached across the table, covering her hand with his. "He knew you cared, that's why he kept writing all those years." She turned her hand to grasp his. "Thank you for saying that." After a moment she added, "What will happen after Blackstone is arrested? To the claim, I mean." "It will revert to your father's estate to you, as his heir," Quentin explained. "You'll be a wealthy woman, Leila. The North Ridge mine is one of the richest silver strikes in the territory. Wealth without family to share, it seems hollow," she said softly. Their eyes met across the table, and Quentin felt a powerful urge to tell her she wasn't alone anymore, that if she chose to stay in Keeler, she would have him in whatever capacity she wished. But the words caught in his throat, seeming too forward, too presumptuous. Before he could find the right words, a commotion erupted in the street outside. Shouts and the sound of running feet drew their attention to the window. "Something's wrong," Quentin said, rising quickly. "Stay here." "I'm coming with you," Leila insisted, already standing. Outside, they found a crowd gathering near the saloon. Smoke billowed from the building, and flames were visible through the windows. "What happened?" Quentin asked a bystander. "Fire broke out during Foster's attempt to arrest Blackstone," the man replied excitedly. "Shooting started, then the whole place went up. They're saying Blackstone set it deliberately as a diversion." Quentin's blood ran cold. "Where's the sheriff? Is he all right?" "Took a bullet in the shoulder. Doc's with him now." The man gestured toward the clinic. "But Blackstone got away in the confusion, stole a horse from the hitching post and rode out." "Which direction?" Quentin demanded. "North, toward the mining claims." Quentin turned to Leila, his expression grave. "I need to get you back to the ranch. If Blackstone knows you're alive and that Reeves has talked, he'll be desperate." They hurried back to where they'd left Copper. As they mounted, Sam Miller ran up to them. "Quent, Foster's asking for you at the clinic, says it's urgent." "We need to go," Leila urged, her face pale with fear. 5 minutes, Quentin promised. "We need to know what Foster knows about Blackstone's plans." At the clinic, they found Foster sitting up in bed, his left shoulder bandaged, his face gray with pain but his eyes alert. "Quent, thank God," he greeted them. "Blackstone's headed north, but not to escape. He's gone to destroy evidence at the mine. He was ranting about it during the arrest attempt, something about papers in the office shack that would prove the forgery. If he destroys those documents, it could make proving the fraud more difficult," Quentin realized. Foster nodded grimly. "I've sent deputies after him, but they're organizing a bucket brigade for the saloon fire first. By the time they get to the mine, it might be too late." "I'll go," Quentin decided. I know a shortcut through the ridge. I can get there before him if I ride hard." "Too dangerous," Foster objected. "Blackstone's armed and desperate. He's already shot 2 men today. And he'll destroy evidence of his crimes if someone doesn't stop him," Quentin countered. "I'll be careful." Leila clutched his arm. "Quentin, no, it's just a mine. It's not worth your life." He covered her hand with his. "It's your inheritance, Leila, your father's legacy. I can't let Blackstone steal that from you too." She searched his face, reading the determination there. "Then I'm coming with you." "Absolutely not. It's my fight too," she interrupted fiercely. "And 2 riders can watch each other's backs better than 1 alone." Foster looked between them, then sighed. "She has a point, Quent. Besides, I don't think you'll win this argument." From his bedside drawer he withdrew a pistol. "Take this." "Leila, do you know how to shoot?" She nodded. "My father taught me before he left Boston. Said a woman alone should know how to protect herself." "Smart man," Foster approved, handing her the weapon. "Be careful, both of you. Blackstone has nothing to lose now." They rode hard from town, Quentin leading them onto a narrow trail that wound through the foothills toward the North Ridge. Leila rode behind him on a borrowed mare, keeping pace admirably despite her still recovering strength. "The mine is just over that rise," Quentin called back as they approached a rocky outcropping. "We should leave the horses here and approach on foot. Less chance of being heard." They dismounted and secured the horses, then crept carefully to the edge of the ridge. Below them spread the North Ridge mine, a series of tunnels cut into the mountainside, with an ore processing area, equipment sheds, and a small office building. A lone horse was tethered outside the office, confirming Blackstone had arrived ahead of them. "Smoke," Leila whispered, pointing to wisps curling from the office window. "He's burning something." "We need to move fast," Quentin said grimly. "Stay behind me." They descended the slope quickly but quietly, using scattered boulders for cover. As they neared the office, they could hear Blackstone inside, cursing as he apparently gathered papers to feed the fire. Quentin motioned for Leila to stay back, then positioned himself beside the door, gun drawn. With a deep breath, he kicked the door open and stepped inside. "That's far enough, Blackstone." Victor Blackstone spun around, a stack of papers in one hand and a pistol in the other. He was a tall man with cold eyes and a neatly trimmed beard, dressed in expensive clothes now smudged with soot. Behind him, a small fire burned in a metal trash can, already consuming some documents. "Xavier," he spat, recognition flaring in his eyes. "Should have known you'd be mixed up in this." His gaze shifted past Quentin to where Leila stood in the doorway. "And the Hamilton girl." "Reeves and Garrett were always incompetent. I should have done the job myself." "Drop the gun," Quentin ordered. "Sheriff Foster has your letter to Reeves. It's over." Blackstone's face twisted with rage. "Nothing's over until I say it is." He raised his pistol. Quentin fired first, his bullet striking Blackstone in the arm. The man howled in pain but managed to return fire as he staggered backward. The bullet whizzed past Quentin's ear, splintering the doorframe. Before either man could fire again, Leila stepped forward, her borrowed pistol leveled steadily at Blackstone. "Drop your weapon," she commanded, her voice remarkably calm. "As Mr. Xavier said, it's over." Blackstone glared at her, hatred burning in his eyes. For a moment, Quentin feared the man would choose death over surrender. Then, with a snarl of defeat, Blackstone let his pistol clatter to the floor. "You think you've won," he sneered. "This claim isn't worth the paper it's filed on anymore. The main vein played out months ago." "Then why kill for it?" Leila challenged. "Pride," Blackstone admitted with a cold smile. "And the satisfaction of knowing Jonathan Hamilton's precious daughter would never enjoy a cent of his fortune. He humiliated me once, refused to sell to me when I offered fair price. I swore he'd regret it." "The only one with regrets now is you," Quentin said, moving to extinguish the fire before it could consume more documents. Many papers were already ash, but a metal strongbox at the back of the office appeared untouched. The sound of horses and men calling to each other announced the arrival of Sheriff Foster's deputies. Quentin kept his gun trained on Blackstone until they entered and took the man into custody. Deputy Marshal checked Blackstone's wound and bound it roughly. "Not too serious," he reported. "He'll live to hang." "The mine office is secure," Quentin told him. "Blackstone was trying to destroy documents, but we stopped him before he could get to everything. There's a strong box here that might contain important papers." While the deputies secured Blackstone to return him to town, Quentin and Leila examined the contents of the strongbox. Inside, they found Jonathan Hamilton's original claim documents, assay reports showing the richness of the ore, and a journal detailing the mine's operation. "Look at this," Leila said, turning the pages of the journal. "Father's handwriting. He recorded everything: expenses, profits, plans for expansion." Her finger traced a passage near the end. "Here, dated just 3 days before his death. Vein continues strong, new shaft promising. Must write Leila tomorrow at last time to send for her." Tears welled in her eyes. "He was going to send for me. After all those years, he was finally ready." Quentin placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "He wanted you here, Leila. He wanted to share his success with you." She covered his hand with her own. "And now I'm here, thanks to you." The ride back to town was slower than their urgent journey out. The deputies led Blackstone ahead of them, leaving Quentin and Leila to follow at their own pace, the strongbox secured in Leila's saddlebag. "Blackstone said the vein had played out," Leila mentioned as they rode side by side. "Do you think he was telling the truth?" Quentin considered this. "Hard to say. He might have been trying to diminish your victory, or he might have been working a different part of the mine than your father. We'll need experts to assess what's left." "Either way," she said thoughtfully, "I have decisions to make about my future." "Yes," Quentin agreed, his heart suddenly heavy with the thought that she might choose to return east now that her business in Keeler was concluded. "I suppose you do." They rode in silence for a while, each lost in thought. As the town came into view in the distance, Leila spoke again. "Mrs. Jenkins' offer of employment is still open, I believe, and I find I've grown quite fond of Keeler in my time here." Hope flared in Quentin's chest. "It's a good place to put down roots," he said carefully. "Good people, room to grow. And certain residents have made me feel particularly welcome," she added, her eyes meeting his with unmistakable warmth. Quentin's heart raced. "Leila," he paused, gathering his courage. "These past weeks, having you at the ranch, I've come to realize how empty my life was before. I know it's sudden, and you have every right to take your time deciding your future, but I want you to know that if you choose to stay in Keeler, I would be honored if you'd consider." "That is, I would hope you might." "Yes," she prompted gently when he faltered. "I care for you," he said simply. "More than I thought possible in such a short time, and if you need time to sort through your feelings, I understand completely." Leila guided her horse closer to his, their legs almost touching. "Quentin Xavier, when a man carries a woman 30 miles across the desert to save her life, then risks his life again to secure her inheritance, I believe certain conventional courtship timelines may be adjusted." A smile tugged at his lips. "Is that so?" "Indeed," she confirmed with a smile of her own. "Besides, near-death experiences have a way of clarifying one's priorities, and I find that my priority is to be where I feel most alive, most myself. That place, surprising as it may seem, is here. With you." "Leila," he breathed, his heart full to bursting. "I'm not saying we should rush," she clarified, But I am saying that I would like to explore what lies between us if you're agreeable." "More than agreeable," he assured her fervently. As they rode into town, side by side in the golden light of late afternoon, Quentin felt a sense of rightness he'd never known before. Whatever the future held, whether Leila's mine proved valuable or worthless, whether they faced prosperity or hardship, they would face it together. 2 weeks later, Quentin stood on the porch of his ranch house, watching the sunset paint the western sky in brilliant hues of orange and gold. Behind him, the sounds of Leila preparing dinner filled the cabin with homely comfort. Much had happened since Blackstone's arrest. The man now sat in the territorial prison, awaiting trial for forgery, theft, and attempted murder. Wesley Reeves had died the night of his confession, but his deathbed testimony, combined with the documents recovered from the mine office, had provided ample evidence of the conspiracy. Judge Wilson had officially recognized Leila as the rightful owner of the North Ridge mine. A mining engineer from Carson City, brought in to assess the claim, had confirmed that while the original vein Blackstone had been working was indeed depleted, a new shaft started by Jonathan Hamilton showed tremendous promise. "Enough silver there to keep you comfortable for a lifetime," the engineer had declared. Leila had taken rooms at Mrs. Pearson's hotel and begun working part-time at Jenkins Mercantile while she considered her options for the mine. Several companies had already approached her with offers to purchase the claim outright, but she had deferred any decisions, wanting to learn more about the business her father had built. Through it all, her relationship with Quentin had deepened. They dined together most evenings, attended church together on Sundays, and spent long hours in conversation about their hopes and dreams, though they were careful to maintain propriety. Mrs. Pearson was a notorious stickler for reputation. The town had already begun to speculate about when, not if, a wedding would be announced. Tonight was special. Leila had asked to prepare dinner at the ranch, saying she had something important to discuss. Quentin had spent the day in a state of nervous anticipation, wondering what decision she might have reached about her future and whether that future would include him. The screen door creaked open behind him, and Leila joined him on the porch. She had changed from her work dress into a pretty blue frock that complemented her eyes. Her chestnut hair, now fully recovered from the desert ordeal, was arranged in a simple but elegant style. "Dinner's almost ready," she said, coming to stand beside him at the porch railing. "But I wanted to talk with you first." Quentin nodded, trying to calm his racing heart. "You said you had something to discuss." "Yes." She took a deep breath. "I've made some decisions about the mine and my future here." "Oh," he prompted when she paused. "I've decided to accept Consolidated Mining's offer to operate the claim, with me retaining ownership and a percentage of the profits. They have the expertise I lack, and this arrangement will provide a steady income without requiring my direct involvement in the day-to-day operations." "That sounds wise," Quentin said, relieved she wasn't selling outright and perhaps leaving Keeler. "They're a reputable company." "Yes, Mr. Foster spoke highly of them." She turned to face him fully. "This decision means I'll be staying in Keeler permanently. I've already spoken with Martha Jenkins about taking on a full partnership in the mercantile. She's eager to semi-retire, and I enjoy the work." Joy surged through Quentin at her words. "I'm glad to hear it. The town would be poorer without you." Leila stepped closer, her eyes meeting his with unmistakable affection. "There's one more decision I've been considering, Quentin, the most important one." He swallowed hard. "And what's that?" "Where to make my home." She reached out, taking his hand in hers. "These past weeks, getting to know you, I've discovered something I never expected to find in the West, something I've been searching for my entire life without even knowing it." "What's that?" he asked, hardly daring to hope. A sense of belonging, of home. Her voice softened. You gave me that, Quentin. First when you carried me from the desert, then when you opened your home to me, and every day since as you've shown me what kind of man you truly are. Quentin's free hand came up to cup her cheek gently. Leila, are you saying, I'm saying that I love you, Quentin Xavier, she declared simply. And if you feel the same, I would be honored to build a life with you here. If I feel the same, he repeated with a wondering laugh. Leila Hamilton, I've loved you since I carried you across that desert. Maybe even since the moment I found you, fighting for your life against all odds. He drew her closer, his arms encircling her waist. I love your courage, your intelligence, your kindness. I love the way you've embraced Keeler and its people. I love how you face each challenge with dignity and determination. Tears of happiness glistened in Leila's eyes. Then ask me, Quentin. With his heart overflowing, Quentin took both her hands in his and sank to one knee on the weathered porch boards. Leila Hamilton, would you do me the extraordinary honor of becoming my wife? Yes, she answered without hesitation, her face radiant with joy. With all my heart, yes. Quentin rose and gathered her in his arms, his lips finding hers in a kiss that promised a lifetime of love and companionship. As the last light of day gilded the land around them, they held each other close, two souls who had found in each other the home they'd both been seeking. Their wedding took place that autumn, with the aspens turning gold on the mountainsides and the first hint of winter in the air. The entire town turned out for the celebration, held in the newly rebuilt church. Sheriff Foster stood as Quentin's best man, while Emma Whitman attended Leila as matron of honor. By spring, construction was complete on the additions to Quentin's ranch house: a larger kitchen, a proper dining room, and an extra bedroom or two for the family they hoped to have. The North Ridge mine was producing steadily under Consolidated's management, providing a comfortable income that allowed them to improve the ranch and invest in additional land. Leila continued her partnership with Martha Jenkins, transforming the mercantile with new inventory and services that met the needs of Keeler's growing population. Her business acumen, combined with Quentin's ranching knowledge, made them a formidable team, respected throughout the territory. One evening in early summer, almost exactly a year after Quentin had found Leila abandoned in the desert, they sat together on their expanded porch, watching the sunset. Leila's head rested comfortably against her husband's shoulder, his arm wrapped securely around her. Happy? He asked, pressing a kiss to her temple. Completely, she assured him, her hand moving to rest on the slight swell of her stomach where their first child grew. I was thinking about fate today. How the worst moment of my life, being left to die in that desert, led to the greatest blessing I could imagine. You fought to survive, Quentin reminded her. Not everyone would have held on as you did. And you found me against all odds, she countered. One rider in all that vast emptiness, choosing that exact path on that exact day. Providence, he suggested, or maybe just good fortune. Either way, I'm grateful. She tilted her face up to his. Every morning I wake beside you, I think how different things might have been if you hadn't come along that day. I would have found you eventually, Quentin said with absolute conviction. If not that day, then another. I believe we were meant to find each other, Leila. Meant to build this life together. She smiled, believing it too. I love you, Quentin Xavier. And I love you, Leila Xavier, he replied, sealing the words with a tender kiss as twilight deepened around their home. In the years that followed, their family grew and flourished. A son arrived first, named Jonathan in honor of Leila's father, followed 2 years later by a daughter they called Hope. The ranch prospered under Quentin's careful management, expanding to become one of the most successful in the territory. Leila eventually bought Martha Jenkins' share of the mercantile outright, renaming it Xavier Mercantile and expanding its offerings to serve the region's growing population. Her business sense and Quentin's ranching skills made them wealthy by local standards, but they remained humble and generous, remembered throughout the territory for their kindness to those in need. Their greatest legacy, however, was not in acres or silver or merchandise, but in the love they shared, a love born in the harshest of circumstances and tested by adversity that grew stronger with each passing year. In Keeler, their story became something of a legend. How a courageous Boston lady survived abandonment in the desert, how a steadfast cowboy carried her 30 miles to safety, and how together they built a life that neither could have imagined alone. But for Quentin and Leila, it was simply their life, each day a gift, each moment together precious beyond measure. The journey that had begun with desperate survival had led them to the rarest of destinations. A love as vast as the western sky and as enduring as the mountains that watched over their home,